Okay, hi everybody. Today we're going to talk about absolute value. And so when we discuss absolute value, we have to really define what absolute value means. And so an absolute value is a distance from zero. So when we are looking at absolute value, the symbol looks like this, and there's always something in there. That is the distance from zero. So here's the thing about distance. Distance really is only positive. We can't have a negative distance. So when I look at letter A, it says the absolute value of x equals 5. Okay, so I want to know what number is 5 away from 0. If I start at 0 and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 is 5 away from 0. But I can also count to the left and have negative 5. They're both 5 away from 0 because distance is a positive measure. It doesn't matter if we go to the left or right. It doesn't matter if we go north, south, east, west. It's distance. So if we want a number that has a distance of 5 from 0, negative and 5 both fit that. On the same note, if we want a distance of 2, and I count 2 to the right from 0 and to the left, I get negative 2 and 2. So distance can only be positive. So if I have the absolute value of x equals negative 3, I am going to make sure that I really pay close attention to this. There's no such thing as a negative distance, so we can't have an absolute value equaling a negative number, okay? That does not work. So this does not have a number that is negative 3 away from 0. If I think about the absolute value of x equaling 0, there's only one thing that's 0 away from 0, and that's 0. So distance can't be negative, okay? And when we are taking the absolute value, we can either be to the left of 0 or to the right of 0. So notice, like this one and this one both have two answers, basically. If I wanted to write an absolute value given a number, so if I look here, I have 1 away from 0 to the right and 1 away from 0 to the left. So I'm looking at an absolute value of 1, because 1 away from 0. If I look down here, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, I'm 4 away from 0, either on the left or the right side. So I'm looking at the absolute value of x is 4. So something important to keep in mind, again, is that distance cannot be negative. And on top of that, I've got two answers in a lot of these. So what we're going to look at today is actually solving absolute value equations. Okay? So when we solve an absolute value equation, basically we need to make sure that we're thinking about the distance. So what I'm saying right here is that some number plus 7 is 3 away from 0. It could be 3 to the left or 3 to the right. So when I actually solve this, I'm going to have two answers. I'm going to have a number plus x, 7 plus a number is either 3 away from 0 to the right, or a number plus 7 is 3 away from 0 to the left. So I'm actually going to have two answers, and I'm going to have two equations to solve. Now, the great thing is we can solve these the same way. We know how to solve an equation like this. We're just going to subtract 7 from both sides. So x equals negative 4 is my first answer. And then x equals negative 10 is my second. So I'm saying negative 4 plus 7 is a distance of 3, and negative 10 plus 7 is also a distance of 3. So when we solve absolute value equations, we need to make sure that we're getting two answers, okay? So what I'm saying in this next one is x, a number, subtract 9, is 12 away from 0. And we don't know if it's 12 to the left or 12 to the right. So we have to find both. Okay, we have to find both. So we're going to set it equal to positive 12 and negative 12. But I'm going to solve them the same way by adding 9. So my first answer is 21. My second answer is negative 3. Either way, both of them are going to give us numbers that are 12 away from 0. So what this equation is saying is 3 multiplied by some number plus 7 is negative 8 away from 0. That's a problem. Distance can't be negative. So we can't ever have an absolute value equaling a negative. So in this case, there's no solution. There's no number that's going to give us a distance of negative 8. Because distance is negative. This last one here says that 2 multiplied by some number plus 3 gives us a distance of 0. So if you think about it, and we have been doing a positive and a negative version, well, 0 doesn't really have a positive or negative version. So if it's set equal to 0, we're just going to have one equation, okay? Because like we said up here, if it's 0, it's just going to be 0. There's no positive 0 and negative 0. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3. And then I'm going to divide by 2. And I'm going to leave my answer as a fraction because that is okay. So when you are doing these, we're taking whatever is inside the absolute value and setting it equal to a positive version and a negative version. Okay? Now we could take it a little bit further, all right? And we could put in some more information here. So if you notice, here's where my absolute value statements really are. Okay, so we want to set that absolute value statement equal to a positive and a negative. But right now there's stuff happening outside that absolute value sign. So what we really need to do is we need to get rid of everything except for that absolute value statement, okay? Because that is going to help us get the absolute value statement by itself. So if I look at this first equation, it says the absolute value of x plus 16 is 32. So what I really want to do is I want to get the absolute value by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this plus 16 by subtracting. I have then the absolute value of x equals 16. So now I'm really isolating the distance, right? So this is saying x must be a distance of 16 away from 0. So either x is positive 16 or x is negative 16. There's two answers here. If you look at B, it's the same idea. Like we want that absolute value symbol by itself, okay? So that means we need to get rid of everything outside that absolute value symbol first. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6. So that is 17 equals x minus 8 in the absolute value symbol. So this absolute value symbol is finally alone, right? So it's saying some number, subtract 8, has a distance of 17. we don't know if it's 17 to the right or 17 to the left. It doesn't matter, right? Because they're both going to work. So I'm going to set this equal to positive 17 and negative 17. I'm going to solve them the same way by adding 8 to both sides. So this would give me x equals, let's see here, 25. Add 8 to both sides, x equals negative 9. So there's two answers. Now on C, you might be tempted to distribute. Don't do that. You can't do that, okay? This is not a parenthesis, all right? This 3 cannot multiply inside. We're talking about distance here, okay? This is not a parenthesis to distribute. You got to get rid of that 3. So if your instinct is to multiply it in, we're going to get rid of it using division. Okay? So I have the absolute value of x minus 2 equals 4. So some number subtract 2 has a distance of 4. Okay? Some number subtract 2 has a distance of 4. Could be 4 to the right, could be 4 to the left. Either way, we're going to get two answers. So be very careful. Make sure you're getting that distance by itself. Okay, make sure you're getting that distance by itself. So if we look at D, this is kind of putting it all together. All right. So you might be tempted to distribute. Don't do it. You want to make it go away. And then you have this minus 10 on the end. Okay. So if this were just a normal equation, right, we would start by adding 10 to both sides because we follow order of operations backwards. So 45 equals 5, absolute value, x plus 6. This is not alone yet. There's still a 5 out in front. You can't distribute, so why don't you divide? So 9 equals the absolute value of x plus 6. So that's our distance, okay? It has a distance of 9. So x plus 6 has a distance of positive 9 or negative 9. Either way, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides to get my two answers. Okay? So be very careful. Your distance must be positive, and you have to think about getting that distance by itself. Be very careful that you have two answers as well. Okay? So that is how we solve absolute value equations. You guys can watch this video again, pause it, whatever you need to do. We started on this page in the book, which is page M2 248. So you can take notes as you watch it a second time, whatever you might do. But please make sure that you give this probably another look, just so that you have a good idea of how to solve absolute value equations. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later.